Hey everybody, a lot of you have been asking me lately to talk about Camp WWE, the new animated show that just debuted this past Sunday night on the network. I did watch the pilot after recording my payback review, so here are my quick observations. First of all, and I can't stress this enough, this is not a cartoon for kids. When the promos say it's an adult-oriented cartoon, they mean it, because you've got a bunch of cursing in the show, it's all uncensored. Then of course in the pilot you've got Ric Flair dry humping a rock formation and having implied sex with a bear. So yeah, not a show for the little ones. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think in the squeaky clean world the company lives in right now, it's kind of refreshing to have that adult edge on their programming, and it's actually kind of surprising that the producers of the show, the people in charge, were given the green light to be this body. Let's get the positives out of the way. First and foremost, the big star of the show, the pilot at least, was Vince McMahon. He voiced a caricature of himself as camp director. I found his role to be hilarious. I mean, the things the character said and did that Vince McMahon would never say on camera, but the stuff that he said like in this character, I thought was hilarious. So random and off the wall. I was actually kind of taken aback when I saw the stuff that was going on, but it was in a good way. I think Vince's character in the cartoon stole the show. Also, I liked the interplay going on between Mr. McMahon and the kid versions of Triple H and Stephanie, who are kind of his lieutenants. They're the camp counselors. I think the stuff that they had going on between the three of them was hilarious. Triple H and Stephanie on their own doing their own side plot, and then the three of them together. I think actually, you know, I was just thinking of this today, if the show does really well and they do a follow-up cartoon, I think it'd be funny if they just had the three of them as the main stars of the show, as some kind of a group of bumbling criminals where Vince was the leader. I enjoyed the cameos of Ric Flair and Sergeant Slaughter in the pilot episode. They lent their own voices to the characters, but Flair's especially I liked, because again, kind of like the Vince McMahon character, it was so off the wall and so out there, you couldn't help but notice it. Really good stuff overall, and I'm actually curious to see what other legends show up as the show progresses. I also like the animation style. It's very unique, and I think it's really fun to see these WWE stars reimagined as little kids. Now in the pilot, there weren't a whole lot of kids who had speaking roles or much to do with anything. The Undertaker was my personal favorite as far as little kids go. I really hope they expand on more of those campers, more of those like wrestler kids in future episodes. I will say the humor of this show is very subjective. Either you like the style of humor or you don't. It's very Family Guy-esque, I would have to say is the closest thing I can compare it to, just without the random cutaways to completely different and irrelevant scenes and scenarios. Now me, I do have a soft spot for that kind of humor. I did think the pilot episode was okay overall. It wasn't hilarious from beginning to end, it wasn't just non-stop laughs, but there were a lot of high points that made me laugh. Sometimes the curse word would be the punchline, and sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't. Now one thing they did frequently on this episode, they took a page out of the Family Guy book where they'd have a joke and it would just drag and just hold and sustain for a super long time. And the whole theory behind that is like you hold on it for a long time, and it's kind of like an inverted bell curve where it starts out funny, then it gets like super awkward, weird, and then the longer it goes, you find it funny. That's the theory, that's the goal, but they did that kind of style of joke no fewer than 3 times in this one episode alone, in different scenarios and different characters, and I didn't really pan out for any of those instances. One thing that bothered me, I'm not sure how many people would pick up on this, but like the audio of Ric Flair and Vince McMahon's dialogue in the cartoon, very chopped up. You could tell that a lot of lines were spliced together with multiple takes, and you could just kind of hear the clips and the cuts in the stuff. It was very distracting for me. It kind of reminded me of like that one episode of South Park where they brought back Chef for one episode after Isaac Hayes had actually left, so they just all of his dialogue were previous Chef sound bites just spliced together, and they made it super obvious like he was some kind of robot. Like that was the joke, basically how bad it sounded. Like that's what this reminded me of with Vince and Flair at times, but I'm pretty sure the humor was not intentional. Overall, I think Camp WWE has a lot of potential. I mean, like I said, the jokes were kind of hit and miss in this pilot episode, but no TV show starts out brilliantly, so you gotta give it time to grow. I think the more time we spend at the camp and see what Vince and the campers do on this show, I think the more time we see these characters develop, it will be more enjoyable and the show will be more fleshed out and more entertaining overall. And again, if sophomore humor isn't your thing, you're probably not gonna like this show, but if you do like that kind of humor, I recommend you give it a try. Let me know what you think of Camp WWE in the comments section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.